Yeah, you made it sound like this.
This is all based on codes. Sorry. And I looked same exact
If I can get your attention, please, we'll go ahead and get started so we get to the good stuff quickly, right? This is Mrs. Vicki Conway. She's from UT Tyler. Some of you may recognize her from your piano skills things that we do in the studio. Some of you may get to know her very well soon as you transfer to UT Tyler. But she has a degree in both piano and organ performance from Stephen F. Austin, and her graduate degree is from Baylor, and she's done further graduate work at Oklahoma State. But the reason why she's here today is that she started a developmental fitness program and has conducted many workshops connecting that mind and body connection with your gross motor skills. And something I wanted to read to you is that she shows the relationships between gross motor skills, cognitive processing, and performance skills. So today isn't just about, hey, I get nervous, and this is what happens. This is about the why. So make sure you scan in there. There you go. So make sure you scanned in, of course, and then scan out, so you're making sure to get your Masterclass credit there. And then there's not a second page. We'll have to get a page. Yeah. So, and if you didn't get a copy of the handout, I'll take care of getting those, and I'll have those available in my office. So without further ado, I'll turn the lights off so we can see what this is Mrs. Conway. Thank you so much. So just a little bit of history. Can y'all hear me? Okay?
Yeah.
All right. So just a little bit of history of how I got interested in performance anxiety. I am a pianist, and I get really nervous when I perform. And so I heard about a program a long time ago, about 30 years now, of a lady who lived here in Tyler who helped ADD kids by using gross motor skills. And I thought, oh, that's kind of interesting. I have a nephew, he's now 40 years old, but he was struggling with ADD. He was about in middle school at the time. And so I called my sister. I said, hey, I don't know anything about this, but you might look into this program. And so my sister called this lady. Her name was Jean Foster. She lived here in Tyler. She was a piano teacher. And he went over to her home. She watched him do 14 different physical activities and just observed the way he was using his body. And that gave her a picture of how his brain was working on a lot of different areas. And so after doing that, she kind of just sat down with them and said, okay, Aaron, here's what you struggle with, and here's what you're really good doing, and here's why. And she just nailed him without knowing anything about him at all. She knew exactly what he was struggling with at school and at home, and she knew what he was excelling at just by watching how he did physical activities. So my sister came home with this pyramid of learning skills, and about halfway up was this block called fine motor. And the premise of the pyramid was that the bottom two rows were all of your gross motor skills, and then all of the cognitive skills build on that. So I'm going, playing piano is a fine motor skill. I wonder if by improving my gross motor skills can help improve my piano playing. And so I met this lady and became fascinated with her work, and as it turns out, yes indeed. If you improve your gross motor skills, your fine motor skills, and all of your cognitive processing gets more efficient. So then I started developing, started trying to find out why. And so that has led me to many, many different things, and this presentation changes every time. And so I have some new information, hopefully, from those who've seen it, haven't seen it in a while. So, is anybody in this room guilty when you go into your lesson and you start to play your piece? Has anybody ever had it fall apart on you?
Yeah.
Have any of you said, but I just played it perfectly in the practice room? Okay, so what's going on? How are you, why does it work in the practice room and not in front of your teacher or not on the stage? So that's what we're going to explore today. So there are many contributing factors to performance anxiety. And that can be just the second one other person walks into the room and you're playing for one other person. It could be your grandmother and you can still get nervous. So many factors, many strategies. We're going to focus on 3 today. What are your practice habits? Okay? And then we're going to learn a little bit more about our nervous system, how it works, what it's designed to do. And then we're also going to look at your dominance profile. So are you left-brained or are you right-brained? Is your right eye dominant? Is your left ear dominant? All right, so we're going to kind of explore how all of that affects your learning styles, and it also affects you on stage because you will tend to default to whatever your natural dominances are when you get under stress. All right, so whenever we're practicing, you are literally building neural network roads in your brain and your body, okay? So the neural networks are how our brain and body communicates with itself. If I'm going to do any action, my brain has to send a message out to the muscle to do that action, correct? All right? Your brain is very active right now, keeping you balanced in the chair so you don't fall over. Your brain is very active right now, keeping you breathing so that you stay alive, right? There's all kinds of things going on at a subconscious level. It's all using this neural network system. So if you notice, it kind of looks like a road map. And we have very thick roads, and we have sort of thick roads, and then we have sort of barely there roads, okay? So if you have done a skill sufficiently to build this thick road, then that message travels over 200 miles an hour. And it's very reliable under stress. It will hold up under pressure, okay? But if your preparation for your piece looks more like this little road right here, okay, that's pretty good. That represents quite a bit of practicing, okay? But that's not going to be as strong. It's going to be more vulnerable to falling apart. Does that make sense? Because the less developed the pathway, then the slower the message travels, and it's likely to get off the path and take a detour somewhere else. And so, once you have this thick pathway, it's like when you have to drive to Dallas on a Sunday morning. There's no traffic, and as long as there's no constructions, man, you can be in Dallas in no time, all right? But if you try to go to Dallas on a Friday afternoon, are you going to make the same amount of time? There's going to be a lot more traffic. There's going to be a lot more barriers. So, same thing. If you have to go from here to Jacksonville, all right, it's a pretty good road, but there's quite a few stoplights along the way that are going to slow you down. It's not as efficient, all right? So, what you have to consider when you're practicing is, what kind of pathway am I building? Now, what is this pathway made of? It's literally a chemical trace called myelin that happens every time a message jumps from nerve cell to nerve cell. And so it just literally lays that chemical down and literally paves a road. And so that's what you're doing. All right, so now, what kind of practicing do you do? Do you practice mindlessly, where you're just doing over and over whatever it is you do? If you play the saxophone, are you just playing that piece and it's so much fun and you're having fun, and yeah, you play it a million times and it's learned, right? And it's learned. You're doing it. You're playing it great in the practice room, and then you go into your lesson and you're not playing so great. It kind of falls apart on you, right? So mindless practicing doesn't really myelinate anything in your memory system, okay? And the piece doesn't have to be memorized. You can be reading the music, but everything is being recorded in your brain that you do. And so if you play a wrong note, that's recorded right there along with the correct note. And so the more mistakes you make in the practice room, then the more information you're giving your brain as to how to play that incorrectly. And when you get under stress, the brain doesn't know what to do. It doesn't know which one to pick. So what are the odds it's going to pick the correct one? Not great, right? Okay, so a better way to practice is what I call smart practice. And it's where you consistently layer information. And so you start with very small goals, and we'll kind of go through some practice steps you can take. We'll go through some very small goals, and your handout is just in case you want to be taking any notes. I just kind of have the big bullet points here. So be aware of your posture and your balance as you practice, all right? Because your memory and your balance go hand in hand, all right? So if you think about people who get older, what's the first physical skill to go? Usually?
Motor.
Balance, right? Older people are always susceptible to falling, right? And then what's the first cognitive skill that we usually start to lose? Your memory, okay? Those two are in the same area of the brain. They are scientifically kind of proven to be related and influenced by one another. So you want to have good posture when you practice. You want to be aware of your posture, and you want to be aware of any tension levels and not be playing really stiff. So you want to be understanding what you're playing. So let's just kind of go through some of these steps, and then always remember, you want the motor memory to go in last. You want the motor memory to be a result of all of this consistent layering. Because if you try to do motor first, you're going to get this. And then when you try to go in and add the details, your brain doesn't want to do that because it already kind of sort of knows what you're going to do, and it doesn't like to slow down and pay attention to those details. So you have to kind of practice slowly and deliberately and very mindfully. So you want to be training, what are you thinking while you're playing? All right? Because if you don't train your mind what to think, what does your mind do when you're performing? It wanders. Or it starts second guessing and criticizing and going, you stupid fool, why did you make that mistake? Blah, 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 blah. And you get all this negative self-talk going on while you're trying to perform this piece, right? So you really want to deliberately plan what you're thinking about as you're playing at every moment. What? Yes, it has. It's happened to me too. Okay, so you want to enjoy the journey of learning a piece of music, all right? Start with the biggest picture. Do you know the form of the piece? All right, so many of us just we get a piece of music and we just start playing. And we just kind of go through the whole thing and we have no earthly idea what's going on. Listen to recordings, all right? Google the piece. If you don't know how to analyze forms, then look it up, all right? You guys have access to everything nowadays that can give you information, most likely on the piece you're performing. Label the sections, all right? So what are some form types that are very common in music? Rondo, A, B, A, C, A. Put those letter names in your score, all right? And then in the A section, how many phrases are there? And how do you find the end of a phrase? What are you looking for? A cadence, right. Everything you're learning in music theory class, you need to be applying in your practicing. Everything. And then, what kind of cadences do we have? Perfect, authentic, okay. And if we think about relating a phrase of music to like a paragraph, all right? So a phrase is kind of equal to one sentence, right? So a perfect authentic cadence would have what punctuation at the end? A period, right? What do you do when you're reading a paragraph and you come to the end of the sentence? You pause, right? Because you've just completed a complete thought. We pause, we take a breath, we go on, okay? Now, we can't add beats to our time signature, but you want to round off that phrase so that it has a sense of completion, and then is the next thing something new, or is it a continuation? So, if you land on the dominant on the cadence, that's a half cadence, right?
Yes.
What punctuation mark would that be? A comma. Do you stop when you're reading a sentence and you see a comma? No, you might slow down a little bit, right? But you kind of go on. So do you see how you can apply everyday language? Music is a language, right? Your cadences are your punctuation marks. And they help you find your phrases. Okay. Do you know what's melody and what's not? Okay. How many are pianists in here? Okay. So you guys have to analyze your score. You have to decide what is the melody note. Okay, how many wind players? String players? Singers? Okay, now, you guys only have one line. Is it always the melody? No, if you're playing with a pianist or with an ensemble, you don't always have the melody. So why do you need to know when it's the melody and when it's not? What is that going to make you do? Louder? Listen, okay? So if you're the melody, you need to be projecting that as the most important part, correct? And you need to be projecting that over your pianist. If you're not the melody, then your pianist has the melody. What do you need to do?
Place off.
Back off, right? And let the pianist shine for a few minutes, okay? So you're always analyzing and going, am I the most important person at this point? Do I shine here, or do I need to be the support person here? Okay, analyze the harmonic progressions as best as you are able with wherever you are in your music theory study, okay? So again, the cadences are the best place to start, but every phrase has some sort of climactic point, right? It may not be a huge, big, dramatic deal, but every phrase is going somewhere. So you want to listen to the harmony, because harmony usually trumps melody in terms of finding the climax, all right? Spoiler alert, the highest note in the melody is not always the climax of the phrase, all right? Follow the harmony. And usually that climax is going to be as you're getting close to that cadence, where you get that tonic to the dominant, all right? Sometimes it's in the middle and you have a very nice rainbow, right? But sometimes the phrase goes all the way to the end and then does a little backing off. All right, so then, now that you've got the big picture, now you jump in and you start learning your notes. One phrase at a time. Stick with one phrase until the notes are secure. You're playing the right articulation. Is it legato? Is it staccato? Okay. For wind players and singers, your intonation, is it in tune? Is every note in tune? You guys have to really listen for that and adjust accordingly. Your rhythmic accuracy. Are you counting? Does everybody see my pen?
Yes.
Yes, I really count. All right? I've been a professional musician for a really long time, and I still have to count to learn my music. All right? So, a lot of times students resist counting. Oh, I can feel it. I just feel it. I don't need to count it. And thank you. Counting in your head is not the same as counting aloud. You need to be counting aloud. Okay? Because when you count aloud, you're processing through your external ears. Your brain hears what you say differently than it hears what you think, or processes what you think. So a lot of times if you're counting internally, you don't catch if you make a mistake, all right? And one of the most common counting errors is, as long as you have a lot of notes that you're playing, you count very steady. And as soon as there's a half note, then you just count faster because you're not doing anything. So you may be going 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So metronome work, yes. But don't turn on the metronome. Don't add the rhythm until you know the notes and the notes are secure. Because if you add rhythm before you know what you're playing, then you're just guessing and you're making a ton of mistakes that are all getting recorded in your neural network system. Okay? So I always encourage my students to add rhythm last. Add rhythm last. Your first priority is notes. For pianists, what fingers are you using? Plan your fingerings and know deliberately, make deliberate choices. Okay. So, if you're memorizing the piece, go ahead and memorize that first phrase as soon as it's learned. If you're a pianist, make sure you can play your right hand alone, make sure you can play your left hand alone, and then immediately put them together. Don't learn the whole piece in the right hand and the whole piece in the left hand, okay? One phrase at a time so that you have attainable goals, all right? And then you get to see your progress and learning gets fun. Okay, so even if you're not memorizing, do you understand what you just played? All right, and a good way to anchor your learning is, let's say your piece is in the key of D major. All right, what is your starting note likely to be? D, R, A, right? So do you put the melody in, organize it within your key? Oh, my opening is so, do. All right, R, A, D, whatever it is, put your solfege on there. Solfege is such a valuable tool. Do y'all learn solfege at TJC?
Yes.
Right. All right, I didn't learn solfege till I was really old. And I was so mad after I learned it because it was so helpful. And I was so mad that I had not learned it in my earlier years of school. So it's very, very valuable. Okay, so before you leave that phrase, a very helpful anchor again to make sure that you're going to remember what you practiced, all right, is can you close your eyes? Can you visualize every single note on the score? Can you visualize the fingers that are moving to play the notes, or the fingers on the piano, or the notes on the piano? Can you hear it in your head and understand what notes you're playing in your mind? Okay? If you take, it's kind of slow to train this process, but again, you're working on 4 measures, or maybe 8 measures. And so it will take you an eternity to do those first 4 measures. And then the next 4 will take you half that amount of time. And the next 4 will take half that time again, because you're starting to lay that mile-and pathway for how to learn. Okay, so technical is done. You just have one phrase at a time and you've worked through your piece. And then you need to be listening for musical elements. What is your tone quality? All right, so many times we're so worried about playing the dynamics from day one that we don't really have a good tone quality, especially if the piece starts piano. If the piece starts softly, a lot of times we're so afraid to play, and so we have this little loopy tone, right? And so you always want to establish your full, rich, resonant tone quality first on every note, and then you can bring that fullness of sound softer or louder, and you're going to have a greater range of dynamics than if you just immediately start by trying to play those dynamics before you really know what you're doing. Again, for pianists especially, are you projecting the melody line over the accompaniment? All right? And if you're playing wind instrument or solo line, do you know when you're the star and when you're the support? All right? How is your rhythm? Okay? Is your rhythm 1, 2, 3, 4? I am playing accurately. This is music. Not. Is that music?
No.
Nope. Okay. So we use the metronome to keep us steady, know how the beats are organized in the measure. We do not want to play like that metronome, where all 4 beats get equal emphasis. Okay? So your time signature tells you 3 things. What does the top number tell you? How many beats in the measure? Bottom number? What kind of note gets a beat? What now? Both numbers tell you what? Louder?
How the beats are accented?
Yes, exactly. The relationship of strong and weak beats, correct? All right. So 2/4 time and 3/4 time have how many strong beats a measure? 1. 1, 2. Think of conducting patterns. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. Right? So if you're 1, 2, 3, 1, accenting every note the same thing, that's not very musical. So you have to look at your time signature. Nothing in the score tells you to do this. All right? You're the musician in the room. You have to say, okay, I need to, is my rhythm flowing? All right? Rhythm flows just like words flow. All right? If you have a multi-syllable word, all right, one of those syllables is going to get a little more emphasis. All right? Otherwise, I'm going to sound like a robot, and everything is exactly the same way. And I sound like the person on the other end of the phone line, right? Okay, have any of you ever had a professor who talked like that? Hard to stay awake in class, yes? It's just like zone out, okay? So you don't want people zoning out when you're performing because you're just throwing all the notes at them with the same emphasis. Understand how rhythm works. All right, you've got to shape those phrases, all right? It's not enough just to have the rhythmic pulse and to bring the melody out of the accompaniment. Where's the phrase going? Again, that harmonic progression has built-in drama and points of tension and points of release in, and that's everything. That's why you're sitting in music theory classes right now. So pay attention in theory. It's an important class. And then the last thing is the dynamics. That's the icing on the cake to me. The dynamics are the icing on the cake. All right? And your overall interpretation. So, doesn't every piece of music have problem spots in it? Some of the piece you can just play without any effort, and then you're thinking 2 measures that just throw you every stinking time. All right? So, you've got to isolate those spots. Is the problem a technical one, or is it a musical one? A lot of times, you can solve a technical problem by thinking of it from a musical angle, or vice versa. But you need to figure out what the problem is. If you have a technical problem, you can bet that it's also creating a musical problem. Okay, but you can solve it from either direction.
So that's a question.
Yes.
I have students that will be on a busy piece, maybe like the Bach or something like that, and they've been playing for a while. They've had it for a while, and they start blocking up, or they just start. Like they just can't get through it, where does that fall? Do you think?
That's just showing gaps in their learning.
Okay.
Okay, most likely they've been doing mindless practicing,
Okay.
and they can probably do it fine at home.
I analyzed it. It's just somewhere that something's taken over that theory.
Yeah, maybe their mind wandered at that point, you know.
Like they get $100.
Yeah, because they don't really know what they're thinking while they're playing. They don't have a plan. They need a plan of what they're thinking as they play through that. That's the way that I would. Yeah. Okay, so look at your score. A lot of times there's slur marks or staccato notes that actually make something easier to play. I think a lot of times we assume everything is legato, especially pianists. We want to play everything legato when there are clear break here, break here, break here. Okay, so look at your score for helpful hints as to how to play those notes. Do you need extra time? Is it a leap that's hard to finger on your horn or hard to navigate on the piano? You know, composers know that big leaps are harder. You can start stretching your tempo a little bit. Buy yourself a little time within your musical phrase to let you make that leap. And usually that's more expressive. Usually composers want you to take a little more time. If you're doing all kinds of seconds and thirds, and then all of a sudden you have a sixth, or you have an octave. That's more interesting. It's kind of a big deal. All right. Something else to consider is your posture. All right. Are you all hunched over? Are you tense? All right. For pianists, what are your arm angles? Okay. Sometimes pianists will play a passage over and over and over and over again. Finally, they'll just get it. And then they back up 2 measures. But 2 measures back, their hands are here. Okay? And then where the problem spot is here. Okay? And so look at my arm angles if I'm playing here versus here. All right? So sometimes we have to plan, okay, I need my torso here, and then I need to be sure I'm moving at a certain point. So that's kind of peculiar to just pianists. All right? But knowing your posture, knowing your fingerings that you're doing, is there an alternate fingering that's easier? All these things you need to troubleshoot as you're dealing with this problem spot. Once you solve it, then know exactly what it is that you need to think. And as you are approaching that spot, you're thinking, okay, I'm going to do this. And you're instead of thinking, oh, I hope I make it through this passage, which I've done many times on stage. And when I think that, what are my odds of making it through that passage? I might come out on the other side, but it's messy and not very pretty in there, all right? So know what you have to think about, because a lot of times we have to shift our hemisphere, our brain hemisphere, all right? Hopefully we're listening to what's coming out of the piano, but sometimes I have to think, okay, I have to remember to hit finger 4 here. And so I have to switch my thinking from kind of intuitive flow to do something specific, and then I want to go back to that intuitive flow. So again, that again ties to those motor skills that Ms. Johnson was referring to, and I'll give you some hints on that as well. Okay, you've learned it, you've worked out your problem spots, now it's polishing time and get ready for the performance. So don't just play measure 1 to measure end over and over and over. That's actually the worst thing you can do, because all you're doing is mindless practicing and motor memory, and that is not reliable under stress. So practice your phrases, which you've numbered all the phrases in your piece. Practice them in random order, okay? If it's a sonata form, start with the recap. Theme 2. Can you play recap, theme 2 to the end? All right? Even teaching little sonatinas. I make my students analyze the form, and before a performance, I get slips of paper and put all the different spots in the form and put them in an envelope, and the kid has to pull one out and start. So they have to know. Recap, I'm in this key, and I'm starting on these notes. Exposition, same spot, same material, but now I'm in this key and I'm starting on these notes. Okay? So practice, a great way to practice is start with the last phrase, back up a phrase, back up a phrase, back up a phrase, start at the end, and work back from the beginning. I think your last clinician, Dr. Milan, mentioned that in his master class as well. Okay? Excellent, excellent strategies. Okay, so drill connecting from the end of one section to the beginning of another section. That's like paragraph to paragraph when you're reading. Okay, so you don't want to just get to the end of a very long A section and just go right to the B section without acknowledging that, hey, this section is done and I need to breathe. Now, here's something new. All right, so don't play necessarily metronomically from section to section. Again, set it up so that you're slowing down and then very smoothly get back into your new section and back into your tempo. All right. Did you know that all forms have inherent drama built into them? Okay? So, if your form is A, B, A, where is the climax of the form likely to be? The entire B section? The end of the B section, especially if it's going to transition you back to the A. Okay? So, every single form has built-in drama. All right? And so you want to dramatize your form so that you're literally playing a story. Okay? Write a story to whatever your piece is. What does it make you think about when you play? All right? And then, what is your intention? What emotion is your piece portraying? Okay? If you have a Baroque piece, generally how many emotions is a Baroque piece going to have built in? One. But there's going to be varying intensity levels, right? Okay, classical style, the sonatas. That style thrives on contrast. Contrast at every possible level. And so the sonata form is really the most dramatic form. That is the form that you hear when you go to the symphony. That is the form that you hear when you hear concertos of any instrument. Okay? The sonata form is the most inherently dramatic. So understand that and have fun telling the story of your piece. And then if you are playing from memory, hopefully you're actively listening to receive your sound. Okay, we have two kinds of hearing. All right? You can think something in your head and hear your thoughts, right? But when that sound is coming through your ears, it's processing very differently. So, have any of you ever heard a recording of a performance and went, did I sound like that? Were you surprised at how it sounded? Because that's not how you heard it, right, when you were performing it. Why is that? Okay? Well, there's a couple of reasons. Anything that we're doing, we hear through our bones. So there's bone conduction. Bones conduct sound. All right? So if I'm hearing my voice, I'm hearing myself through my bone conduction, which is why when I hear a recording of me talking, I'm going, that's not me. I don't sound like that. Well, I sound like that to you. I don't sound like that to me. Right? And so you have to train that ability to hear what's coming out as opposed to hearing what's in your head. You have to have what's in your head to get it out, but then you have to simultaneously listen to what actually came out. Because what you thought you did is not always what actually happened. All right. And again, plan where to think, what to think when, especially in those problem spots. And then mental rehearsing. Can you close your eyes and audiate through your entire piece? Do you know your piece that well? Okay. If you've learned it phrase by phrase and you've taken the time to do 4 measures at a time, that's very possible. Okay. If you mindlessly practice and then you try to think through your piece, you may not make it past measure 10. And it's like, fuzzy, I'm not sure what's going on, okay? So, do you see how you can build layers and work toward a much more secure neural pathway that's going to hold up much better under pressure? It's not a guarantee of a perfect performance. We're not aiming for perfect performances, hopefully, all right? We're aiming to communicate, all right? So, but it will greatly help. This is the one thing that I have learned that has helped me the most to be calm on stage, is layering my learning and really having my brain know what my fingers are doing. That has helped me the most in terms of performance anxiety. So now let's look at our nervous system. So the handout that you have here is kind of a summary, and I'm not really following this, but I thought if you're interested in this, this is a great summary. This was actually done by one of my students last year who was a piano concentration, but she was a pre-med major, and she's now in medical school at UT down in the valley. And so she put this together for me for a presentation I gave at TMTA last year. So, what's the highest priority of your nervous system? Keep you alive. To keep you alive, okay? All right. So, the vagus nerve is the longest nerve in the body. It goes from your head, past your heart, all the way down in the gut. Okay? So, have you ever had some upsetting news and you feel like you've been kicked in the stomach? Okay? That's your vagal nerve reacting to whatever it is. Okay? Have you ever been really nervous and your heart is racing? That's your vagal nerve trying to protect you. Okay? So, your vagal nerve is responding all day long. And there's two sides. There's the sympathetic side that stimulates the heart to increase energy output. And there's the parasympathetic side that calms the heart so that you can decrease the energy output. So what happens when we get on stage? Which one of those nervous systems is taking over? The one that's increasing our energy output, right? So we'll look at that a little bit more in depth in just a second. So if you can understand and befriend your nervous system, in other words, listen to your body. It's telling you you're not safe, okay? And it's a feeling. It may or may not be accurate. You may be perfectly safe in terms of life or death, all right? But your body is interpreting getting on that stage like you're about to die, okay? Your body is reacting just like somebody is holding a gun to your head, all right? So understanding that and understanding how to manage that is a huge component to dealing with performance anxiety. And here's something that is really important. Remember those messages that are going from the body to the brain and the brain to the body? 80% of these vagus nerve messages, 80% goes from the body to the brain. 80%. Which is why you're all upset and somebody says, calm down. Calm down. Can you calm down by telling yourself to calm down? No, because your body is overriding your brain. All right? So let's look at how we can manage our expectations and give ourselves grace, all right, to understand what it is that we're going through and give others grace who may be going through difficult situations as well. All right, so there's a term called neuroception, which is the way that your nervous system is taking in information 24/7, even when you're asleep. Your nervous system is working. Your ears are your primary defense when you're asleep. And so your ears are always scanning for noises. And something's going to wake you up if there's a loud noise that might be something that's dangerous to you. All right, so you're doing this on a subconscious level. You, most of the time, have no idea you're doing this. It's just happening, okay? It's your own personal alert terrorist system, okay? So, it can be influenced by past experiences. So a lot of times we may be interpreting things inaccurately. And so there may be something in our environment that is not threatening at all, but there's something from your past that didn't like what's happening. And so your body remembers that and immediately goes, okay, I gotta protect myself again, here it comes again. So just realize that we all have trauma, we all have triggers, we all have just pet peeves that can send our nervous system into protection mode, defensive mode. So your body will always choose an appropriate response to keep us safe from whatever the perceived threat whether it's real or imagined, okay? So, 3 ways we're taking in information. The vagal nerve is always monitoring what's going on internally in your body, okay? Are you at rest? What is your heart rate? What is your blood pressure? Are you digesting the breakfast that you have? All right, are you hungry? What's going on outside in the environment? So everything in this room, your body is taking in subconsciously. And then your relationships between people. All right, if you just had a fight with your girlfriend or your boyfriend or your mom or your dad, okay, can you focus on what's going on in class a lot of times, or are you still reliving that fight, right, and wondering how we're going to resolve whatever that situation is, all right? So all these things are going on all day long. Okay, so it's very helpful if we use the image of a ladder to kind of find where we are in the state of our nervous system. So if we're at the top of the ladder, imagine yourself out with your friends, right, at a coffee shop, and you're just hanging out and you're all having a great time, right? You're connected. You can probably learn anything you want to learn from your friends at that time. You just absorb everything and remember, right? And so that's where we love to be, at the top of the ladder, all right? Now, we cannot stay there all day long. It's impossible, and that's not the goal, okay? So the middle part of the ladder is where we get agitated. Maybe we're frustrated. Maybe you're in the practice room and you're struggling with that problem spot and you're getting angry. And so when that happens, your heart starts pumping faster, your body's getting you ready to fight. You're ready to fight that passage to the death. So the bottom of the ladder is a very dangerous place. The bottom of the ladder is when you just collapse, when you want to just go crawl in a hole and hide. If you find yourself stuck on that bottom rung, you need to seek counseling. You need to talk to someone, okay? Because that is a very, very dangerous place to be. You do not want to stay there. So the goal is resilience, all right? We're going to have things that agitate us, all right? Just driving to campus, you can get mad at the drivers on the road, right? All right? But does that mean you have to bring that temporary anger all the way into the classroom, or can you let it go and come back up to the top of the ladder? So the ability to move within states, and yes, we all go down to the bottom rungs. We all go down there, and we have those moments, all right? But we want to be able to come back up and not get stuck there. Okay, so we actually blend these states. It's not top, middle, and bottom. All right, so we actually blend them. So when we blend the top and the middle, that's when we are safe, but we're active. Okay, we need energy to practice. We need energy to study. We need energy to meet with friends and to play and to exercise and go to the gym. We need energy to get on stage and perform or play in that competition, okay? So we're combining the top and the middle, which is why a little bit of nervousness is a good thing when you perform, okay? The worst performances I have ever had were when I, for whatever reason, just was not nervous. I was just like, I got this, I'm good. Those are always my worst performances, okay? A little bit of nervousness is giving your body that edge to have the energy you need to do what you need to do. If we combine the top and the bottom, all right, then that's when we're safe, but still, when you're, you're focused, you have a good attention span, you can concentrate, maybe you can read, you can study, all right? And you can also be close to those you love, and you can sleep, okay? So if you can't sleep, your vagal nerve is on overdrive. All right, and you've got to find a way to come back up to the top of that ladder and say, okay, body, I'm not in danger right now. Let me sleep, please. Okay, now, if your neuroception is faulty most of the time, you're going to get stuck like a hamster in a wheel. All right, going around and around and around and around, and nothing is getting better, okay? So you want to be careful, and you want to, again, listen to your body, all right? If your body is tired, it needs to rest. If your body is hungry, you need to give it good quality food. So, because we can get stuck in past experiences, a lot of times we can get stuck in that middle part of the ladder, all right? And so we'll look at it in just a minute what happens internally when that happens. So chronic illnesses and conditions limit your ability to learn, limit your ability to heal and recover from illnesses and sicknesses and viruses. So all of that affects everything. All right, so there's 3 distinct brain functions, all right, that are located in different places, okay? The survival part of the brain is your brainstem way back here. That's the oldest part of your brain, all right? Then right in the center, right above your soft palate in your mouth, is the emotional center of the brain. And then everything on the top and around is your intellect. So as humans, this intellect part is the majority of the real estate, okay? The emotions are a very small part in the center, and then your brainstem is the very small part in the back, coming down into the neck, okay? So it's very important that these 3 things are balanced, and they're only balanced in a state of safety, okay? So if your body has to choose, and your brain has to choose between surviving or performing an intellectual task like playing your instrument, what is your body going to do? It's going to survive is the default mode, right? So your intellect is where everything you've practiced is stored, okay? And when your body starts slipping down that ladder and going into survival mode, your intellect goes offline. It's kind of like the bad Wi-Fi that's spotty, and it's kind of there and it's kind of not, and it's kind of there. All right, have you ever found yourself sort of fighting your coordination in the middle of a piece? It's like all of a sudden your hands aren't doing what you trained them to do, and you're going, why aren't you doing what you know how to do? Your intellect's going offline, okay? And not only your intellect, but other things as well. So, fear of any kind, real or imagined, triggers the survival response. And so all these things start happening internally, all right? Your body starts pumping adrenaline, okay? What does adrenaline give you? Energy, okay? Why does your body want you to have extra energy? So you can run for your life, yes? Okay, so your heart starts racing. And as a musician, when you're backstage and you've got that nervousness going on and you're thinking the piece in your head, if your heart is racing, you're going to think the piece way faster than you usually play it in the practice room, but it doesn't feel faster. It feels right. And then you go on stage and you start, and your first 3 notes and your teacher goes, oh dear, we're in trouble. Because your teacher can hear that you're going way faster than you were prepared to go. And then at some point, you the performer realize, oh dear, I'm going way faster than I can do this, okay? So my advice at that point is just allow the piece to gradually slow down a little bit. You're not obligated to keep that. If you know you're going to crash and burn, all right, then slow down and don't crash and burn. Your audience will appreciate that little change in tempo much better than you falling apart. Because guess what? Does the audience enjoy watching someone fall apart? Do you enjoy that? It's devastating. We've all been there, right? We know how devastating and terrifying that is. We don't wish that on anyone, okay? So be aware. I usually will have a metronome backstage, okay? And I know my ideal tempo. You should know a metronome mark that you want to perform the piece, okay? have the metronome backstage and have that. You can even do it on silent and just see it pulsing. And odds are you're going to think, man, that's slow. Man, I can play at that speed, because your heart's like going like this, and then your piece is going like this, and you're going, oh, this is going to be easy, right? So just being aware that you think faster when your heart is racing, and that's going to lead you to start your piece in a faster tempo. Again, the adrenaline, also your blood flow is diverted to your legs, so you can run for your life. Okay, how many instruments are played with your legs? Morgan, very good. But we still need fingers. We still need fingers. Okay, so when the blood is diverted from your head down into your lower extremities, that's when you can feel lightheaded. This is why kids in elementary school programs faint on stage, all right? Because their body has gone into survival mode, and all their blood is getting pulled into their legs, and it is like, ooh, ka-chunk, right? Easy, all right? Your digestion stops if you're in survival mode. You don't want to be wasting energy digesting food when you got to run for your life. So that's why you can get a queasy stomach or nausea feelings, okay? Your non-dominant brain hemisphere goes offline. And that's why your hands won't work together, because my left brain controls my right hand. And if it's not my dominant hemisphere and it goes offline, that affects everything this hand is trying to do, okay? So it affects your memory, because you lose information that was stored in whatever hemisphere is going offline. This is a big one. Your senses are alerted to the peripheral. Okay, because you're in, I gotta protect myself mode. Okay, so the person opening the candy wrapper in the third row while you're performing, right? It's just like screaming in your ear. Please be respectful when you're the audience. Don't drop your books. Don't let your phone go off. All right? So,
about that.
Yes.
Because I did a class with another person that did a lot of things on, performance anxiety, and he has to keep a journal. And I was wondering what you thought about this, that the times that I played well, the rooms seemed really light. The times that I didn't play well, it felt like when I wrote my journal, it felt like the room felt dark. And I don't mean because of the lights, I mean it just felt totally that related in any way to the story.
Sure. Yeah, because you get feedback from the audience, they're going to be responding, and a lot of times you're very intuitive to how they're responding, and that's going to affect everything that you're doing. So yes, you're very much aware that there are people out there listening to you, right? And if they're sending you negative vibes, they're probably not intending to send you, but again, you may be getting faulty neuroception at that point for whatever reason. So when you can't focus, there's a reason for that, because you can't focus on an intellectual task when your body's in survival mode, because you're protecting yourself. Okay, and so we'll go on because I am running out of time. So there are some regulating activities that you can do. So give the state a name. When you feel that nervousness coming on, give it a funny name, all right? Okay, and then imagine that funny name doing something stupid or weird that makes you laugh at it, okay? And then ask that person, hey Winnipeg, is this response needed right now? Do I really need to run for my life when I'm about to walk on stage and play my Mozart sonata? Thank you for trying to protect me, but I'm good. I'm good. I don't need your help right now. And so you can literally start having conversations. Eloise Reistad in her book, Soprano on Her Head, calls that your inner judges. You can literally name those critics inside your head and have conversations with them and say, I hear you, thanks, but no thanks. And you can start to kind of monitor what's going on internally. What puts you at the top of the ladder? What is your favorite thing to do that you are really good at? if you can imagine yourself doing that, everybody just do that for just a second. Close your eyes and imagine yourself doing your favorite thing that you are super good at. It might be playing video games. It might be playing basketball. It might be anything. Put yourself there. Okay? Now, just tune into the muscles of your body. All right? And on a scale of 1 to 5, how ready are your muscles to go do that activity, with 5 being ready and 1 being not ready? Okay? And just kind of think about that. All right? Now, erase that thought from your mind. All right? Now I want you to imagine something that frustrates the heck out of you. What is something that you do procrastinate doing until you cannot procrastinate anymore, and you know you're going to have to do that? Put yourself doing that task or that activity that you do not like, that is really, really hard. It's a source of frustration. Imagine it. Okay, now tune into the state of your muscles. Are they the same scale, 1 to 5? Okay, are they much heavier now? Like you were at a 5 to do something you want to do, and now you're at a 1 and your muscles are going, It's kind of like getting out of bed in the morning, right? And that alarm goes off, snooze. I'm not getting up yet. Okay? So, your muscle readiness depends on your emotional state and your nervous system state. So, if you can imagine doing what you love and what you're good at, you can help to get your body in a better state to attempt then what is hard and frustrating. Gentle movements can calm you down. Rhythmic breathing, okay? Let's all breathe in for 6 counts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Breathe out for 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Does the room feel calmer? Collectively calmer. Okay? Your breathing is the one thing that taps both your conscious and your subconscious. So it's a great tool that you can use even on stage. All right? Even on stage, you can tap into, am I breathing properly? I need a deeper breath. And then I need to be willing to exhale and keep exhaling and get rid of that excess energy. Okay? Singing, chanting, humming are all great activities. Stretching, okay? Doing stretches before performance, okay? If nothing else, just shrug your shoulders. Check into your joints. Where are you tense? Let it go. Pretend like you're drunk. All right? We don't want to be drunk. I don't recommend getting drunk. Just pretend like you're drunk. What do you imagine being drunk would be like? Okay? All your muscles are loosey-goosey, right? So, let yourself physically feel muscular drunkenness. All right? And then bring that back to your playing and be much more relaxed. Do not use alcohol to get that. Okay, many of you do yoga, tai chi, meditation. All of these programs are fantastic. And then just 3 activities I will show you. Brain gym hookups. All right, if you will cross your legs, cross your arms, and lace your fingers together, and then just pull this in. And then breathe. Deep breaths in. Deep breaths out. Okay? This is a great thing to do in the moments before you walk on stage. It's been scientifically proven to stop the adrenaline being pumped into your system. So this can help to arrest all of those negative effects that your body is doing to keep you safe. And so if you know you're safe, all right, in terms of life and death, okay, if you want to play well, I get that, all right, I do too. But that's not the same kind of safe as your body is interpreting, right? So this is a great activity to do. You can stay here. You don't have to curl it up. So this is something you can do in your chair. Nobody even notices you're doing it. But crossing your midline with your ankles and your arms helps to pull that blood back left and right, and back, top and bottom. It helps send the blood back into your head so you can think and have everything online. All right? Puppet crawls. All right? Everybody stand up for a second. So, feeling really anxious and you need to calm down, okay? Then a puppet crawl, lift your right arm and your right leg, and then your left arm. And just back, like your hand is pulling up your knee to the string, like so it's left versus right. It's still a whole brain body activity because one side you're balancing and the other side you're lifting, right? So it's still great for the whole body, but this tends to slow down the brain and say, okay, chill, don't go into overdrive. All right, so that's a great activity to do. Stay standing. Now, the opposite of that, if you need more energy, or you want to say, okay, all parts of the brain really work together efficiently, then we're going to do cross crawls. So, touch opposite hand and knee. And doesn't this feel smoother and more efficient than the puppet crawls? Yes? Okay, so this is a cross lateral activity that's one of those motor skills that's extremely important, okay? Because this is engaging upper brain, lower brain, left brain, right brain, and when you're doing those kinds of things, you're building those neural connections and strengthening them into more solid pathways that will keep you more secure under stress. Okay? Okay, you can have a seat. If you are really super anxious, okay, or you feel like you've just got so much pent-up energy, then do jumping jacks, or hop, or run, or get a jump rope and do jump rope. Get rid of that excess energy in a healthy way. All right? And it will help you to calm down. Okay? And finally, if you can find something to laugh or somebody to laugh with, laughter can send you to the top of that ladder faster than anything. Okay? So, don't be afraid to use humor. Don't be afraid to laugh and have fun, because that is a literal top of the ladder anchor that we all have access to. Okay, just really quickly now, moving to the dominances, because I'm already past an hour. So if anybody has to leave, I'm not offended if you need to leave. Just be sure to scan out. Okay, so understand everything you have two of, one of them is dominant, okay? And it may be strongly dominant, or it may be a little bit dominant over the other one, okay? But everything that you have two of, one of them has a slight dominance. That means that when you're doing an activity, that side will probably do 90% of the work, okay? So if I'm left-brained, all right, then I'm going to think in a very linear way. I'm going to like step by step practicing. If I'm right-brained and I'm more creative, I'm going to want to change things up all the time. I don't like structure. I like my freedom. I like to do things from a creative point of view. So depending on your brain hemisphere and which one's dominant will kind of determine how you like to approach tasks, okay? Some of your classes are right brain oriented. Some of your classes are left brain oriented. So you tend to be drawn to the ones that match your brain hemisphere dominance, okay? So what comes naturally? Guess what? You don't need to practice what comes naturally. But that's usually what we do in the practice room. We practice what's easy instead of practicing where we need to concentrate, okay? So we need to concentrate on the areas that are difficult. That's what practice is, okay? Under stress, your body will revert to what comes naturally because, again, you lose, your non-dominant hemisphere goes offline under stress, okay? So there are 32 possible dominance profiles between hemisphere, eye, ear, even your nose has a dominant side. your hands and your legs. 32 possible profiles, and there's a great book called The Dominance Factor by Carla Hannaford if you're interested in pursuing that further. So, each hemisphere processes from an opposite point of view. So, your ears are very important to you as musicians, okay? So, your left ear is processed by your right brain, and it's the one that hears that rhythmic flow and the tone quality and the emotion, picks up on the emotions and the feelings. That's coming from your left ear and your right brain. Your right ear is your detail ear, okay? For what notes am I actually hearing? Is it a C, E, and G, C major chord? Is it a C minor chord? Is it a dominant 7 chord? What is it? Okay, so think of your right ear as your detail ear and your left ear as your big picture interpretation ear. So, they don't process at the same speed, okay? Your right ear processes faster than your left ear. And this is because of a crazy neural thing where on the left side of your body, the nerve that goes from your brain, it's coming from your ear, it goes to the brain, and then it travels underneath your heart and then back up to your throat. Okay? And so it does the same thing on the right side, but the artery is much higher and smaller here. The big aorta coming off the heart is right here on the left side. So that split second that message takes a little bit to travel farther, it's literally traveling, okay? And so if you have to take 5 more steps, it's going to take you a little longer to arrive where you need to go, right? So your ears don't process at the same speed. Why is that important? All right? Because if you are left ear dominant, then you can be easily overwhelmed, especially in the middle of a performance. And you can kind of get overwhelmed at the beginning of your performance to where everything just kind of just starts confusion, okay? So, let's quickly see if we can test our ear dominance, okay? And just kind of show you how you can practice closing one ear or another as a practice strategy. Okay, so I want you just to listen to this excerpt for a second and just notice what you're drawn to in the music, okay? This is a 2-piano performance of a Rachmaninoff suite. Close one ear, whichever one you want, and listen again and notice what you're drawn to. And notice if you're drawn to something different. Okay, now listen one more time with both ears and see if you hear it differently than you heard it the first time. If you need to work on details like what notes am I playing and what beat am I supposed to be playing on, then take an earplug and plug up your left ear so that you'll turn off that emotion and that feeling and that tone quality side, and you can really hear more details. If you need to connect emotionally with your piece, if you need to work on more rhythmic flow or more interpretation things, then plug that right ear and listen with your left ear. Okay? And so if you know which ear is dominant, then plugging that dominant ear will allow you to tap into things that you probably have not been paying much attention to. Just because, remember, your dominant ear will do 90% of the work. And so most of us are mostly listening from only one hemisphere perspective. And so by plugging one or the other, you can wake up that non-dominant ear to participate. And if you do that on a regular basis, you actually train that non-dominant ear to be more participatory. And at some point, then you can say, okay, for me, it's my left ear is dominant. So I have to say, okay, right ear, wake up. I need you. I need to know what notes I'm playing right now. I need to hear all of these running 16th notes. And I need to be able to track them so that I don't lose my place at the beginning of my piece because I'm having a slight panic attack inside. Okay? And then one other simple thing you can do to wake up both ears is just take your fingers and your ears fold in. Just unfold your ears. Just start in the middle, go up and around, and unplug your ears and do that about 3 times. And that just wakes up each ear to say, oh, maybe I'm supposed to be working here. All right? There's over 400 acupressure points in your ear. Okay? So you're just stimulating all of those and saying, okay, brain, get online. Both sides. Okay, so what's your state? All right? In the practice room, hopefully we're here. Right? Okay? But when we get to that practice stage, we may be here or here, right? Okay, so just pay attention to your body and listen to it, and know that when you feel yourself going into survival mode, there are tools that you can use to bring you back up. Okay? And then finally, to close, have healthy and realistic performance expectations. Okay? Your goal is to communicate with your audience, not to play everything perfectly, okay? I have heard note perfect performances, and quite honestly, I was usually very bored, all right? And I have heard performances with major crashes in the middle that I was very moved by, okay? So everyone makes mistakes. Just recover and get back in the character of your piece, and your audience will forget. You'll be the one that can't forget. But your audience is very forgiving. You know that about when you listen to your friends. Do you care if they make a mistake? Of course not. It doesn't really, ruin the piece for you. So you have to keep realistic expectations. Realize that a performance is often just showing you a gap in your learning. There's something that your brain doesn't know you're supposed to do. All right? Your fingers know it, but if your brain does not know what you are doing at every given moment, that is a moment for a memory slip, a potential memory slip. Okay? So learning to add more layers beyond that motor memory. And then always don't be learning your piece at the last minute. Okay? If you only get your piece learned the night before you perform, what kind of pathway have you made in that neural network map?
I got too thick.
Not a good one, not a thick one, right? So you want your piece memorized weeks before, and then you want to be playing for your friends, and you want to be playing for your studio classes. Okay, so you get to play in front of people who are friendly and supportive and understanding. And hey, can you listen to see if I've got all my memory, if my memory is going to hold up when I'm playing for somebody else? All of that's very, very important, okay? And then receive your own performance. It took me years to understand how to do this and to actually do this. And guess what? I never enjoyed performing until I learned how to listen to what was coming out of the piano. And then it was like, oh, this is kind of fun. I like this piece. This is nice, okay? So, if you never enjoy performing, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't be a musician. You just haven't trained that ability to receive your own performance while you're doing it. So it's a skill that can be learned, okay? And then remember that any performance is one event on one day. It does not define you as either a success or a failure, okay? It's one event on one day, and so if you don't have a great performance, don't think, okay, I can't be a music major. I shouldn't be a music major, okay? It's just telling you there's still skills you need to develop and work toward, okay? You've been so attentive, and thank you for letting me go over.